And there are those today in the same way that take offense at our Lord and his church also. That is, if you really think about it, they want him removed from schools, from public places, from the media, from politics. That is, it's interesting that everything else is okay, but our Lord or the Christian faith is the only thing that seems like it's politically incorrect. And so too, there are many good people out there today in this day and age, but are just indifferent to our Lord and to faith and to church. And so it makes you just wonder when you look around at every mass that we have and so few children there, what is the future of our faith? And when parents have an attitude of indifference, that is, then they teach or hand on that indifference to their children. Who, like the wise men, know that we don't know everything, know that there is something more than this world and something greater than us. And then to get lost in wonder and awe at the generosity and love that God has, so much so that we pay him back through our own generosity and love of others. But attitudes are important because attitudes change feelings, feelings change actions, and actions change lives. And so that is why it's so about 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, I was joking around here at church, which I often do. We were telling people about the angel giving tree, where you take the tag off and you get something for someone in need. And joking around, I added, and there's also a Father Dunn giving tree as well with tags on it with things I want, so please be sure to take a tag and get something I want on your way out. Of course, it was just a joke. But anyway, about less than a week before Christmas, I was up on here on a weekday Mass in the morning, said Mass in the morning, came back to my home, came back to the rectory, and I noticed something strange about my tree in my house. There was tags all over it. There was a giant star on it that said Father Dunn's giving tree. And then I walked over to it, and there was tons of gifts under the tree of all things that I like, food and drink and gift cards, and it was a crazy amount of gifts. First of all, I will never joke about that again. Or gotta really be careful how I joke around, I guess. But then also, I have to say, I was truly touched by the generosity. As it turned out, it was members of the homeschool association, along with the principal of our school, who, while I was at Mass, decided to quickly do all that. And as humorous as it was an incredible act of generosity and care and love also, I have to say I was very touched by that. And I thought about that because I thought that in regard, as we are now at the end of the season of Christmas, it actually ends tomorrow with the Feast of the Baptism of our Lord. That is, when we take in the whole story of Christmas, shouldn't we also be kind of lost in wonder and awe in regard to the generosity and love that God has for all of us? If you really think about it, it was an incredible act of generosity and love. That is, that our God came down from heaven in an incredible way to become one of us, to prove that he is indeed real, to prove how much he loves us, and then to ultimately even suffer and die for us also. That should have an incredible impact on us. And sometimes we just think about it as a long ago event, and our Lord was born for those of old. But no, he was born as much for you in a very personal way, each and every one of you. He was born for you, to tell you how much he loves you. And that's why our attitude towards that should be real, incredible awe at the generosity and love that God has for us. But in regard to this epiphany, or the divine manifestation of God's love for each of us, perhaps the question is, not only for ourselves, but, what is the world's attitude then towards this? And I think it comes down to a few attitudes that we see in this day and age. And there's first the attitude that King Herod had. King Herod was offended by our Lord, if you really think about it. He didn't want our Lord to interfere with his kingship or his power. And so what did he do? He sought to destroy him, to get rid of him. And there are those today in the same way that take offense at our Lord and his church also. That is, if you really think about it, they want him removed from schools, from public places, from the media, from politics. That is, it's interesting that everything else is okay, but our Lord, or the Christian faith, is the only thing that seems like it's politically incorrect. That is, everything else goes, but that. And so there are those today who have that same attitude as Herod, that want to get rid of him. They want him out. They don't want our Lord. They don't want the church telling them what to do or how to live. They want to be their own king, and they will not humble themselves before anyone. Then there's the attitude perhaps of the Jewish leaders and authorities at that time, and that is the attitude of indifference, if you really think about it. That is, they were, God-fearing men at that time, but they knew the prophecies. They had to see the star also, but it didn't make any difference in their lives. That is, their lives remained unchanged. That is, they had more perhaps important interests and concerns, so it didn't have any effect on them. And so too, there are many good people out there today in this day and age, but are just indifferent to our Lord and to faith and to church. That is, you take our parish or any other parish out there, and you take the number of registered families at that parish, I guarantee there are less than 25% that actually go to Mass on Sunday. You even take the families that send our kids to Catholic school or to the religious ed program here, and not just our parish, every parish, there's very less than 25% that will come to church. And so it makes you just wonder when you look around at every Mass that we have and so few children there, what is the future of our faith? And when parents have an attitude of indifference, that is, then they teach or hand on that indifference to their children. That is, their children will know that our Lord and faith and church is really not that important, and other things come before that. And so, on a side note, I just want to really recognize. In fact, we should have a standing ovation for the parents and children that are here now, and how proud and happy God must be also that those that come to church and are bringing up their children up in the Christian faith, our Catholic faith and church. But there is an attitude of indifference out there. Everything else comes before our faith and our church. But then there's the attitude of the three kings, right? The attitude of the three kings. Now, these were very important. That is very important and rich, perhaps, people also. They had it all, but they traveled a great distance. They met with all kinds of dangers and obstacles. That is, to find our Lord, to search for him, to find him, and then they were lost in wonder and awe at God's generosity and God's love. So much so that they offered the greatest gifts that they could possibly offer. And that is the attitude that we all should have. That is, to, like the wise men, know that we don't know everything. Know that there is something more than this world and something greater than us. And then to get lost in wonder and awe at the generosity and love that God has, so much so that we pay him back through our own generosity and love of others. That is, we seek to spread that generosity and love that God has for us. We seek to spread that to all. And so it's a good day then to reflect upon the attitude that we have of the entire Christmas story. That is it possible that sometimes any one of us perhaps fall into different attitudes? That is, do we get or do we take offense at our Lord when prayers are not answered or things don't work out the way that we hoped? Or do we sometimes fall into an attitude of indifference and start placing other things before our Lord, before church, and allowing other things to have priority over him? Or do we try to seek to have the attitude of the three kings? But attitudes are important because attitudes change feelings, feelings change actions, and actions change lives. And so that is why it's so important to mold and shape our attitude, to really let the Christmas story and God's generosity and love fill our minds and fill our hearts. That is, the Epiphany is also translated or also means great discovery. We are the fortunate ones. We are the ones that have discovered who God truly is and the great generosity and the great love that he has for each and every one of us. And so we should rejoice in it and help others to rejoice in that great discovery also.